WADR.
WADR.
West Africa Democracy Radio.
WADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. This is NEWSLINK. Here are the top stories. Counting is underway in Liberia after the close of the October 10 presidential and legislative elections. Niger cumulatively lost around $500 million in support from the United States as it acknowledges the July 26 coup. 3 reasons explain President Macky Sall's dissolution of the government, according to a governance expert.
The first reason is to help the new Prime Minister, who is the candidate for the ruling coalition, to have a team that will support him, but also to give some credibility to the election.
And the federal government of Nigeria denies reintroducing petrol subsidy amid filling station closures.
No subsidy whatsoever. We are recovering our full cost from the products that we import. We sell to the market. We understand why the marketers are unable to import. We hope that they do this very quick, and this is some of the intervention government is doing. There's no subsidy.
Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Tawfiq Abdul Nasser with NEWSLINK.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in Ghana, the Gambia and Liberia. Let's begin in Liberia, where vote counting is currently underway following the official close of Tuesday's election to choose a president and members of parliament. Elections observers say that the October 10 general elections saw an unprecedented large turnout. This is the 4th election to be held in the country since the end of a decade-long civil war and the first to be fully funded by the country. WADR's Darlington Popper has this report.
Counting commenced immediately after voting closed about 6 p.m. on Tuesday. As approved by the electoral umpire, 20 presidential candidates participated in the process, with each hoping for a resounding victory to rule a country about 5 million people for the next 6 years. But the fact remains that the race is between the incumbent George Weah of the Coalition for Democratic Change and former Vice President Joseph Yuma Boakai of the Unity Party. Overall, the process was peaceful in parts of the country, excluding thousands of people in the southeastern region who could not vote due to bad roads occasioned by extreme weather conditions. David Etta Brown-Lassana is the chairperson of the Electoral Commission.
All efforts by the NEC staff to cross the river from both sides have proven futile so far. This has affected the conduct of polls in at least 11 precincts in District 2, Sino County. Also, the truck carrying electoral materials to District 1 in Sino County got stuck in the mud in the Butor area. The election magistrate has arranged a fleet of motorcycles to convey the materials, but were also challenged due to bad road.
There were, however, electors disenfranchised for an unconventional reason. Beatrice Howard was told she has voted even though she has yet to.
They collected our cards to carry inside. It was inside for like 10 minutes. Then they came back outside to us. They started calling our name. Today is my theater voting. Since I've been voting, it never happened to me before.
Mama Bogakoli observes the elections for the United Nations. He attributes the situation to a gap on the part of a few electoral workers.
There were Liberians lined up here since 4 a.m. Some of them went long on the queue and missed the directions because, take for example, Center 1 here bearing the names A to J. So you have a situation of where some of the voters bearing the last name letter W went all the way and then got to the door before they could be told the facts.
The regional bloc ECOWAS described the successful conduct of the October 10 elections as a remarkable achievement in Liberia's democratic journey. In the meantime, Liberians patiently await the official release of preliminary results later this evening. It is worth noting that Liberia's constitution stipulates a maximum of 15 days for the declaration of official results. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Pogba in Monrovia.
Now, more than 2 months after the July 26 coup in Niger, the United States government says it takes note of the ousting of President Mohamed Bazoum. The statement by the State Department was communicated by the U.S. Embassy in Niamey on Tuesday. Matthew Miller, spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, stated that his government has concluded that a military coup has occurred in Niger. This acknowledgement is coming at a heavy cost for the coup state that last Friday announced a 40% budget cut due to economic sanctions. Ogiobi Erika has more in this report.
The Nigerian government has lost more than a total sum of $500 million following the declaration under Section 7008 of the U.S. State Department Annual Appropriations Bill. Washington, D.C. says all aid programs are immediately suspended except for humanitarian support. Programs affected by the suspension include the Millennium Challenge Corporation, which carries an envelope of around $302 million for Niger's Regional Transport Compact. However, vital humanitarian, food and health assistance for the benefit of the Nigerian population are retained, the statement said. The United States also assures that it is not giving up on the Nigerian crisis as it intends to continue working with regional governments to advance common interests in the ECOWAS sub-region. The Western ally reiterated its call for the release of Mohamed Bazoum, his family, and all persons detained. The statement on Tuesday coincides with France's commencement of the withdrawal of its 1,500 troops stationed in Niamey, while America, on the flip side, has 1,000 soldiers stationed in Agadez. As a reminder, the United States rejected the use of force considered by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and supported by France to free and restore the deposed president.
Ogiobi Erika reporting there.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NEWSLINK continues.
Elsewhere in the Gambia, recent comments and actions by President Adama Barrow are driving discussions in a section of the population that believes he is tilting towards an authoritarian rule. In the past few weeks, journalists and critics of the government have been arrested and detained. Barrow, once celebrated as a symbol of hope and change after defeating the longtime ruler Yahya Jammeh in 2016, is now seen as damaging democracy, a system he said was too much in the country. As Sankule Janko in Banjul reports, CSOs claim Barrow is slowly eroding the democratic gains made during the early days of his presidency.
Concerns grew over the past weeks following the spate of arrest and detention of journalists and government critics. President Barrow's dictatorial tendencies, analysts say, grew when renowned journalist Mahdi Jabate got arrested on Monday for criticizing the Gambian leader on social media. Famara Jana is a human rights activist.
Unfortunately, some of the things that were happening before, they've started coming back. Detention without trial, arbitrary arrest, keeping people incommunicado. These are the things that we are seeing today, and they were happening in Jammeh's time, and we all complain about them. And we fought so hard to get rid of Jammeh. So it's rather unfortunate.
To date, several journalists have been arrested, some on bail, and media outlets intimidated, causing panic among media practitioners about freedom of the press in the country. Mohamed Esba is the president of the Gambia Press Union.
This is a bad signal. It's a looming threat against press freedom. So this is a concern, and it is really a serious threat to our democratic gains.
Civil society and the National Human Rights Commission have expressed concerns about the current development. Asked about the negative effect of Barrow's comments, some Gambians had this to say.
Gambians will never go back to dictatorship. Gambians should come together and fight against dictatorship. We are not going to go back to the era of Jammeh. No dictatorship in the Gambia.
After all of these sacrifices are going on and after all the dividends that are paying off, we're still hearing a president is making utterances like this. It's a big disappointment and a big worry.
The situation in the Gambia remains fluid, and the debate over President Adama Barrow's leadership continues. Many are hoping for a return to the democratic ideals that initially inspired his presidency. Meanwhile, the Office of the President has released a statement assuring that the President will continue to respect democracy and rule of law. The Office of the President assures the public that the President is not threatening anyone in any form or shape, but intends to put it on record that troublemakers, in the guise of what they are not, will not be allowed to bully opponents, rain insults, peddle hate speech, or incite to render the country ungovernable. The statement reads. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sankole Janko reporting from Banjul.
Here in Senegal, questions remain about the reasons, intentions, and presumed agenda of President Macky Sall when he dissolved the cabinet last Friday. The surprise dissolution came 4 months away from the nation's 2024 presidential elections. Other concerns raised include the effect or impact of this decision on the political scene since Prime Minister Amadou Ba, who is the chosen flag bearer of the ruling camp, Benno Bokk Yakaar, retains his position. While the Senegalese head of state did not give reasons for the executive action, he justified Ba's reinstatement. Speaking to WADR, Ibrahim Khan, a governance expert, shares his perspective on the development.
When you look at the decision made by the president last week and his speech before releasing the ministers, I think there was 2 or 3 main reasons. The first reason is to help the new prime minister, who is the candidate for the ruling coalition, to have a team that will support him, but also to give some credibility to the election, because apparently the Minister of Internal Affairs will move. They will create a minister in charge of the elections. And that is something that was done in the past. Abdou Diouf did it. Abdoulaye Wade did it to organize the last election that he lost. And maybe he is also trying to give more credibility to the election. But at the same time, the current Minister of Internal Affairs is going to be his chief of staff. Giving credibility is the second argument. The third one is also making sure that this government speaks, in one voice. Right. Because the last government, you had people who decided to leave and those who were still in the government but against the candidate. So at least to make sure that there is a kind of harmonization in the way that they speak, in the way that they communicate with the rest of the population.
Ibrahim Khan is a governance expert. You are listening to NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Counting is underway in Liberia after the close of the October 10 presidential and legislative elections. Niger cumulatively lost around $500 million in support from the United States as it acknowledges the July 26 coup. 3 reasons explain President Macky Sall's dissolution of the government, according to a governance expert, and the federal government of Nigeria denies reintroducing petrol subsidy amid filling stations closures. Still ahead is the press review, Liberia election updates, and sports. Stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
The Nigerian federal government has denied reintroducing the subsidy on petrol, stating that the closure of many filling stations is due to distribution challenges rather than a lack of supply. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NEWSLINK-11 added that it would have gone bankrupt in June this year had it not stopped the subsidy on petrol in May. This is coming at a time when fuel queues are resurfacing in parts of the country. From Abuja, Usman Umar reports.
For 6 months, we have been on the queue because of this mago. Okay, you see this one now. He's trying to enter. But this guy didn't allow him. I myself, I will not allow him.
Authorities should tell us what and who is responsible for this queue, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't understand any story right now.
This is the situation on fuel queues in parts of Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Many fuel stations have been shutting down operations, resulting in fewer stations dispensing the already expensive petroleum products. Allegations by groups, including the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASN, are also alleging that government has secretly resumed paying subsidy due to high cost of crude oil and the exchange rates. They attributed the closure of filling stations to challenges in accessing foreign exchange. But Mele Kyari, the group managing director of Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited, speaking to journalists after an audience with President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa, denied these allegations.
No subsidy whatsoever. We are recovering our full cost from the products that we import. We sell to the market. We understand why the marketers are unable to import. We hope that they do this very quick, and this is some of the intervention government is doing. There's no subsidy.
The NNPC Limited has revealed that Nigeria will become a net exporter of refined petroleum products by next year as efforts to revamp refineries continue. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Sankule Janko in Banjul joins us now with the major headlines from the Gambian dailies.
Hello there and welcome to this edition of the Press Review. Let's begin today's Press Review with the Point newspaper. It's a very interesting headline that reads, Standoff at Dasilame border as GAF denies Senegalese heavily armed forces entering. Well, there were rumors that there was a standoff between the Senegalese army and the Gambia at the border village of Dasilame, but the Gambia armed forces has denied that the Senegalese heavily armed forces actually entered the country. A British High Commissioner visits tourism sites. That's another story on the Point newspaper. And this other one reads, UNICEF country rep hails Gambia over girls' rights. Senegambia tourism authorities agree to reduce Banjul-Dakar air fare. That will be a pleasing news to so many people who use flight between Banjul to Dakar. That's another story. Now, let's move on to the Fourier newspaper. The lead story on the Fourier newspaper reads, NAO, that is National Audit Office, alleges Farafenni General Hospital of using expired drugs. Former Basse Area Council Finance Director admits lack of qualification for the portfolio. Justice Jaide to hear Sukuta traffic light shooting case. That's another story on the Fourier newspaper. FPAC says auditors report $21 million worth of missing Gambia college payments. And finally, let's move on to the Voice newspaper. And the Voice newspaper's lead story reads, bombshell at BAC as council suspends 14 staff over corruption allegation. Cargo diversion to neighboring ports affecting business at the port, according to Managing Director Jobat. And this other story reads, Farafenni General Hospital's total expenditure in 2016 stood at over $22 million. I'm afraid these are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies, and it's back to you in the studios.
Sankule Janko there with the major headlines from the Gambian dailies.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
As the process of tallying ballots continues following Liberia's recent general elections that took place on Tuesday, we are now joined by our correspondent in Monrovia, Darlington Popper, for the latest updates. Hello, Valentin. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Right. So can you bring us up to speed on the current status of the election coalition process, and when can we expect preliminary results to be announced?
Basically, following the close of polls yesterday at 6 p.m. to other centers, we observed that votings were taking place up until 8:39 p.m. last night because due to the huge return of people. So the process started last night, the coalition process started last night where electoral workers were collecting the raw data that came in, the votes, and got the preliminary results of each of the candidates and posted on the bulletin. So for the public to see, for instance, if you have 5 maybe present or maybe 500 people voting to a specific voting precinct, they will go and see how many present voted for candidate A or candidate B. So that process lasted up until this morning around 2 or 3 o'clock. Most of the centers in most of the county we are voting from are almost concluded. So as the Election Commission Chairperson Dr. Brown-Lasana said yesterday, some part of Liberia, especially the southeastern counties, region of where the winner voted yesterday, she said voting will be ongoing that day. And there are some areas the voting materials could not reach because of bad weather conditions, but by heavy rainfall in those areas. So she appealed to people to remain calm, that once the water content is low, voting materials will be moved into the areas and ensure that those voters who are over there will have the chance to vote. And officially, 4:30 p.m. this afternoon or this evening or 5 o'clock, the National Elections Commission will commence the official pronouncement of preliminary results for the close of the elections on Tuesday.
Right. So have there been any notable challenges or irregularities encountered in the coalition process, and how are they being addressed?
Yes, basically in Mosirada County District number 9, last night around 9 o'clock in the night, we spoke with one of the electoral supervisors, and he said while they were counting the ballots yesterday, they observed that a certain group of people loyal to a particular candidate ransacked the entire areas, and they demanded that they stop the process because according to them, they observed that cheating were ongoing at the particular center. So because of that, they had to stop the process and immediately called in the joint security who actually responded in time to ensure that they put the situation under control. So besides that incident, we actually are not aware of any major incident, except maybe there are something that we did not know, and the Elections Commission will have a press conference today.
So how are the major political parties and candidates reacting to the ongoing coalition process?
For now, most of their supporters are trooping on the social media and claiming that they have won the elections. Some are saying, especially with the senatorial ballots and the representative ballot, we know that there are some supporters or some of the candidates who claim that their preferred candidates already won the elections. For the presidency, is actually quiet in Monrovia as of last evening up to present. Almost 90% of Liberians in the capital city, Monrovia, are glued to their local radio stations in listening to all the preliminary results and announced by journalists who are visiting these polling centers and polling precincts, announcing the raw data on air. So most of the people are actually listening to radio and ensuring that they follow the process gradually while they patiently await official pronouncement from the National Elections Commission anytime this evening. But we have said this before, but from the local teams, this particular elections, there is a high possibility of a second round, which will be between the ruling coalition for democratic change of incumbent President George Weah and the main opposition leader, Ambassador Joseph Yuma Boakai of the former ruling Unity Party. From what we have been able to see from preliminary results, posted up almost all the centers. The two candidates are head-to-head. Most of the centers, either George Weah is stepping to a particular center, and another center you observe after the former vice president is in a major lead. So that is how this process is, just like a zigzag process.
Right. So, Darlington, what has been the international community's response to the ongoing exercise, and are they following closely?
Basically, we spoke with the European Union chief observer yesterday, Anders Schender. He was actually impressed with the peaceful manner in which the voting process was conducted yesterday across the country. He said they have observers to over 200 polling stations and precincts across the country, and all the reports they gathered from there yesterday, what he pointed out to was that the process by and large was very peaceful. There were no issues of maybe violence erupting somewhere, maybe protests or conflicts where we have to have intervention of the security. He said he observed the manner which at the polling station where you have people in queues, they are shoving one another, that is normal. But what he said was that they observed unprecedented turnout yesterday. From in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, they observed to some hard to reach areas, especially in Cluster Monrovia. There were some centers in West Point, for example, where the stronghold, one of the strongholds of President George Weah, they observed that people slept in a queue just to cast their ballots. So he said it was unprecedented to see the number of turnout yesterday, especially among voters in Liberia, over 2.5 million people who registered to vote. The turnout was actually huge.
Thank you very much, Darlington. And do keep your ears and eyes on the ground to bring us up to speed on any development. Darlington Popper is WADR's Monrovia correspondent. And in sports, Ghana Premier League club Bechem United has reportedly sacked their head coach Bismarck Kobe Mensah. This comes after a poor run of form in the new 2023-2024 Ghana Premier League season. United lost 3 of their 4 matches under the stewardship of coach Bismarck. Mensah, who was appointed at the beginning of the new season, got sacked in Bechem's 2-1 defeat by Midiema SC last week. Nigeria, South Africa and Morocco, according to media reports, could be placed in the same group when the Africa Cup of Nations AFCON draw is made in Côte d'Ivoire on Thursday. The 6 top seeds include Morocco, who created history at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar by becoming the first semi-finalist from Africa. Nigeria is among the second seeds, while South Africa has had to settle for a place among the third seeds for the draw in Abidjan, the Ivorian economic capital. And that's it for sports. We have come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukidi and Mustafa Sek for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Taufik Abdul Nasser. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0, and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your